Hey, college wrestling fans, this is Johnny Thompson, number one here. I don't know how many of you know much about my background. I don't talk about it very often in my writings or in my videos. I grew up in a little town in southeastern Iowa by the name of Sigourney, and we had a horrible, horrific tragedy happen this last weekend, here towards the end of May. There was a former assistant wrestling coach that died in a tragedy, passed away in a horrible fire. And I want to talk a little bit about him because I know he was a very impactful man in a lot of people's lives. His name was Bill Rees. So a little history here. Sigourney Savage High School Wrestling was started by legendary coach Jack Smith in the 1963-1964 season. And after a while of coaching around 8 years, he coached by himself. He realized that he could really use an assistant. Back in those days, wrestling was not really big in our area. A lot of the high schools didn't have it. Montezuma didn't have it. Tri-County didn't have it. Brooklyn didn't have it. English Valleys didn't have it. I don't know if Sigourney was the first school. I think Belle Plaine actually might have been the very first school to bring wrestling to their high school. But Sigourney was one of the first, if they weren't the first. So it was not a sport people were really familiar with. So when Coach Smith was looking around for a assistant, there wasn't anybody around that knew the sport. And so Bill Rees, with zero wrestling knowledge, uh, volunteered to be the assistant. And it's kind of if you ever get the chance to talk to Coach Smith about this, it's actually pretty humorous to hear him talk about it. So what happened was the year before Bill was going to start helping Jack as an assistant wrestling coach, what they did is they went over to Jack's house and they cleared out all of the furniture um, in the living room. To cleared out the couch and the chairs and everything else and the coffee table and all that. And Jack taught Bill about the sport of wrestling there on the living room floor, taught him, this is a single leg takedown, this is a double leg takedown, this is how we run an arm bar, this is how we throw a half Nelson. And it's just comical to think about two grown men, back in the late 60s, on the living room floor, and the one teaching the other one about the sport. I know talking with a lot of people, I think Bill started helping Jack coach, I think, like I said, in the late 60s. And then I think both of them, Jack retired from being their head wrestling coach after the 1987, 1988 season. And I think that's when Bill stepped down too as the assistant coach, I believe. And I know that you can talk to a lot of people that were athletes for Bill. I think Bill also helped out with football. I know Bill was a part of the state titles that the girls track team won back in the early 90s. A lot of people thought very highly of Bill. Now, me personally, I never really knew him all that well. Um, he was a very quiet man. I'd run into him once in a while, like my dad and I might run into him at the gas station or something, and good morning, Mr. Reese. Just casual stuff like that. He came to a lot of our high school matches, and I wrestled from 2001 to 2004, and he was always there. He was there a lot of them anyway. He's very quiet, like I said. Usually, they would kind of like to stand off in the corner and watch us, or he'd be up in the bleachers watching us. And anyway, the story that I want to get into right now about Bill, because this is something that happened about 21 years ago that still means a lot to me to this day. Um, as you know, if you're familiar with wrestling, we have qualifying tournaments if you want to keep going to the next level. And in the state of Iowa, if you want to go to the next level, you got to either win the tournament or you got to take second. And I finished in third place. So I was one match away from being a qualifier for the district championship my senior year. And I tell you, it's hard for me to admit this now, but I have to be candid about it and I have to be honest about it. At that time in my life, coming up short of that goal, failing at that goal, left me in a very bad place mentally and emotionally. I was depressed. I was extremely angry. I was bitter. I was suicidal. I hate to admit that, but I was. And I didn't want to know nothing from nobody. The world around you keeps going on. And so, you got to go back to school. You got to take your classes and you do your best to put on a happy face, right? You don't want anybody to know what you're feeling. You want people to know what you're going through, but you also know that there are people out there that they do know what you're going through. They do know what you're dealing with. And so that tournament happened in mid-February. And then probably about, I don't know, probably about a month and a half later, it would have been around the 1st of April. Um, I was out and about with a buddy of mine, me and Chris Yoder. I think it was him, it might have been somebody else, but I was out and about with a friend of mine, and we ran into Bill, and he motioned me to come over and talk to him. I didn't know what he wanted to talk about, but I went over to him and he kind of pulled me off in the corner, so it was just me and him. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he says, "I know how bad you wanted your name on that wall. I know how how bad you wanted to be among the greats of Sigourney Savage Wrestling. That you wanted the name Steven Stonebreaker to be up there with the Clark Yoders and the Ross Yoders and the George Snackenbergs and the Danny Hamises and the Darren Millers and all these other guys that had gone to state and done really well." He said, "You don't know it, but when you were out and you were running the streets of Sigourney," he said, "I saw you." He said, "When I would drive past the high school, I always knew your car would be parked out by the wrestling room and you'd be inside working on moves and working on strategies because you wanted to get better." He said, there are people in this town that you'll never know that admired and respected the work you put in." And then he said, there were a lot of people in this town that wanted to see you succeed. And I was one of them. And I tell you, as an 18-year-old kid that was really messed up at that time, not in a good place, Bill Rees taking 2 minutes out of his day to do that for me, to say that to me, that I needed that. I needed to hear that. I needed to feel that. Um, like I said, he was a guy I hardly ever talked to, a guy I didn't really say a whole lot to, and never really, knew him that well. But he took time out of his day to do that for me. And really, I was 18 at the time. I'm 40 now. Uh, when you look back at that and you realize that, and him doing that for me, that's what a coach is, right there. It's not about what they teach you and techniques and all that stuff is great, wonderful. But what a coach is someone that knows, when somebody is hurting and he can brighten your day, make you feel better about yourself, make you come to some realizations you should have came to. So that's my story on Bill Reese. What a great human being he was. What a wonderful man he was. I wish I would have known him better. I wish I would have taken the time to get to know him a little bit better than what I did. But anyway, I thought that needed to be shared. So thank you.